Now, you've mentioned a whole series of topics which clearly have a theme connecting them, which is that people in positions of influence, power, authority or responsibility aren't what they seem.
Yes, that's actually very right.
When did this start for you?
It started in well, I've always known since I was 19 that there was something fundamentally wrong with society. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I knew it had to do with money. And since looking into this, it was really 2005, I saw a DVD about 9/11 being an inside job. And since then I just dug deeper and deeper, peeled the layers off the onion, and got down to see like the global banking scam, how the bankers are connected with the politicians, and the Bilderburg groups, the people behind the government, who, you've got the Conservatives and your Labour, and in America you've got the what do they call their parties, Democrats and Republicans. How it appears that you have two different parties. It's an illusion of choice, because behind the scene, no matter who's in power, behind the scene there's one bunch of people operating them all, like, you know, and it's called the Illuminati, the very highest level of the Freemasonic society around the world. You know, there is a secret society ruling the world, there's a secret agenda at play. And I can give you a specific case in point. There's an ongoing case right now with a paedophile ring up in Scotland. What it was a young Down syndrome girl called Hollie Greig. She's been abused by her father. And when this case got looked into a bit deeper, she named other people who were involved, including a senior Scottish sheriff called Graham Buchanan, right, the chief of the Grampian police, social workers, lawyers, nurses, and they were part of a Freemasonic paedophile ring. And when they tried to expose the truth about this, it's even gone as high up as the Lord Advocate of Scotland, Elish Angelini, has used their position of power to stop the case progressing and guard any investigation into it. So this kind of corruption of abuse of power really does go on, and it's not like out there in the world, it's right on our doorstep, like.
Where do you get your information about it from? Is it primarily from the internet?
A lot of it comes from the internet, because it's really the only place that isn't really governed, regulated by the government anymore. I mean, this is controlled completely by the corporate media who were involved with it. The people at the head of the BBC were strategically placed there, and all the mainstream media outlets, they were strategically placed there decades ago. So basically, to feed, should we call it propeganda, whatever they want the people to believe, will come up through that. But if you go on the internet, it's unregulated, you can find anything you want. But the government are trying very, very hard to come down and quickly nip that in the bud. They call it Internet 2, government regulated internet. That's the last thing we want to see. It's a great blow for freedom if that ever happens. But yeah, a lot of the information comes from the internet. You know, there's other sources, people that I speak to. And mostly it's my intuition, you know. Over the years I've kind of built up, we call it finely tuned bullshit detector. I know the truth from fiction when I see it. When we put the pieces of the picture together, I can see what's false and what's true, and I see what's really going on there.
What do you think the ultimate goal of these conspiracies is?
Well, the ultimate goal, it's the depopulation of the planet. They even come out and say it. You know, Prince Philip has said it, Bill Gates has said it. A lot of these high-ranking, so we say, Freemasonic people, that if there's something called Bohemian Grove, but these super powerful, super wealthy global elitists, the agenda is to reduce the world's population by about 80 to 90% through eugenics, through the manipulation of our food, GM crops. Like in Mexico, for example, they were very proud that they'd invented a spermicidal form of corn, which being a staple in Mexico means everyone will be eating it to sterilise all the men in the country. You know?
Why did they want to cut the population by 80 or 90%?
To cull the population? God knows, man. Maybe you should go and ask them. They think there's too many. I mean, or maybe they're scared if we ever wake up to what they're doing. There's too many of us, and we can have the ability to squash them. But if you get rid of most of us, then you can't. But this stuff really is going on. You know, if you look at all the wars they waged them on, they're all false wars. The origin, the driving factor behind these wars were lies to begin with. So there's an agenda behind everything that goes on.
Do you think this is as old, this sort of thing is as old as humanity, or do you think it's more recent?
Yes, it is quite an ancient thing, but this is the time our classes where they're trying to bring it to fruition.
Do you see yourself as having a personal mission in relation to this?
Just for one thing, it's just to be aware of it. Just to see behind the veil, you know. I mean, most people are unable to see, or unwilling for whatever reason. But I see it as my mission to learn about as much as I can about it, and then, you know, to do whatever I can to help people see what's happening.
Have you had the experience of sharing it with other people and they're becoming rejecting or hostile or mocking you?
Only if I approach someone who knows nothing about the esoteric or any kind of hidden knowledge, shall we say. Only if I approach the average Joe, and it completely goes over the head. Like I say, most of the people just laugh it off. The odd one or two can become hostile, thinking it's just too much, you know. It's like, don't bring the bad news, don't bring the bad news, I don't want to see it, like, just leave me asleep. So yeah, a few people get hostile with it, but for the most part, most people just remain unaware. But there are a few people who research it just as deeply as I do, and we can have some quite interesting discussions.
Are any of those personal friends who you see face to face?
Yeah, yes, they are. They're great people.
Yeah. Are people who live here or people who live elsewhere?
No, I generally have to travel. The people in the truth movement are few and far between.
What sort of places do you have to travel to?
It's a short train ride.
Yeah. Okay. And I respect the fact that you wouldn't necessarily want to tell me. I understand that. Okay.
It's just I'm particularly aware of a case of a guy called Maurice Kirk, who was committed, possibly, to mentioning these things. I mean, he did get out in the end. Caused a lot of embarrassment, and the psychiatrist involved was sacked. But yeah, I'm not saying you in particular, but certain people in your industry have been taught to look out for certain key words that people would mention if you look too deeply into the conspiracy, and to have them committed for it. In fact, I don't know if you're aware there's something in the DSM book called political dissidence syndrome. Have you ever heard of that? Political dissidence syndrome basically means if you disagree with the government, you're mentally ill. You need some Thorazine. Can you see the agenda?
Oh yeah, and I know a bit about that because
You used to do it in Russia during the Cold War.
Because in Russia they basically redefined what schizophrenia was.
That's exactly right.
To be able to commit dissidence, so that you had fixed beliefs against the government that could be used as part of the evidence. But
yeah.
So it's not physically, you know, on paper or electronically part of the current DSM. Well, you're absolutely right. Some of those abuses happened in Russia. They certainly did.
Yeah. Well, I was watching that DVD the other day, and he showed you. I'd always heard of lobotomies, but I didn't quite know what one was until I saw one being performed.
Yeah.
And I was shocked. It was literally very shocking, and I'm thinking, how can such an eminent psychiatrist in his field coming up with an idea like that possibly be considered sane? Right, if I was to say to you, for example, I've got a perfect idea for a solution to help people. I want to go and stick a metal rod into the brain, jiggle it about, turn them into a vegetable. I'd probably be put in a straitjacket, thrown into a padded cell to protect society. You know what I mean? This guy's dangerous. But no, this guy went straight to the top of the industry.
If I remember right, the inventor of lobotomy got a Nobel Prize for medicine.
Yeah.
And if I remember right, I could be wrong here, but I think ultimately he was shot by one of his patients with his spine and paralysed. Right. But anyway, I'm digressing now.
It's quite interesting stuff though, you see. Yes, all the type of stuff I look into.
Yeah, that's right. I understand that. In terms of, I particularly want to understand whether you get information from any other sources. You talked about the internet, you've got friends that you go and see, you've got your own intuition. One thing which I know came up in one of your previous assessments was whether you heard messages about this in the form of auditory hallucination.
No, there's no auditory hallucination, no visual hallucination.